Hi, I'm Clever Ghoul, but you can call me Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. This week, I have another Dollar Tree craft for you. Well, one item that goes with it and the spray paint aren't, but the rest of it is something you could do with just Dollar Tree items. Now, I know I've been doing a lot of skull projects lately. I don't know, I guess I'm just really into skulls this year. And this week, I don't even know what to call this really. I guess it would be a skull plaque or a skull plaque light. I don't really know what you call it. I hope that I figured it out in the title when you're watching this video. But basically, we're making a skull plaque that you can hang up and that has a little candle on it. It's a good creepy decoration to have. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, but once I had it up at night, it's very effective. And again, this is a Dollar Tree craft, so you can't really go wrong. With that being said, let's get into it. For materials, you'll need the following: one plastic skull and one small round mirror. Both of these items are from Dollar Tree. Hot glue, sandpaper, an X-Acto knife, a variety of acrylic paints. I used chocolate brown, honey brown, and deep gray, and a few different Krylon sprays that you'll see here. I used both a gold and this hammered brown color to kind of prime the skull. And then I also used Krylon chalky finish in colonial white. And lastly, you'll need a little votive candle. You can get these at Dollar Tree. I wanted one with a little more height and to look a little more realistic, so I ordered mine from Amazon, which I will link below. First, I went around and figured out where I wanted to cut the skull. I marked it in several places because I wasn't quite sure. I started by cutting on the outermost line that I had made instead of going too far inwards because, as always, you can cut off more if you want to, but you can't put it back. Once that was cut out, I took some sandpaper, sanded any seams of the hard plastic, and added any roughness so that the spray paint had something to hold on to, and just to give it a little bit of a beat up texture. Once I was done sanding it, I took it outside to prime it with this gold Krylon spray paint. I did a light layer all the way around and then let it dry. I used gold here like I did in my catacomb project because I wanted some dirtier tones in there before I started painting. When the gold had dried, I looked at the sides and realized I wanted it a little bit darker, so I pulled out some hammered brown and sprayed it all around the skull, mostly focusing on the edges and bottom of the skull, just to add in some depth. Again, once that dried, I did my final coat of spray paint using Krylon chalky finish in colonial ivory, just to get that white, chalky, dusty bone sort of color going on all over. Once that was fully dry, I brought it inside and added in some washes of acrylic paint. Now I start with a mid-tone. I just think it's a good way to start adding in more depth. So I used a chocolate brown and some water and just brushed that all over, and then took a paper towel and would dot up any excess or anywhere where it was pooling, and then would let that dry. Then I went back in and did another coat of that, making sure to also get in the jaw and underneath the skull. Bones get kind of yellow when they've been sitting for a long time, so I pulled out some honey brown, mixed it with water, and did a wash of that all over since the entire skull needs to look aged. Again, I dabbed up anywhere where it was pooling and let that dry before moving on. Then I mixed together a little bit of that deep gray with the chocolate brown, adding some depth into the eye sockets, the nose, and the teeth area, just adding depth into those places. And then once that was dry, I just took some of the deep gray by itself and again just went back in and added any of the shadows or darker bits. Then I went back and forth with all of these washes, just kind of seeing what needed what, if I thought there needed to be more mid-tone somewhere, if there needed to be more shadow, if I wanted a little bit more of that yellow aged color coming back in. And I just played with this back and forth, letting everything dry fully in between coats before I felt like it was done. And lastly, it's time to add the candle. Now I wanted this to go into the skull, almost like it's been sitting there a long time. It's a light in this old forgotten temple sort of situation. I don't know, I just really wanted this creepy, weird candle in the middle of the skull. So I placed my candle on top of my skull and using a pencil just marked out lightly where I needed to cut. And then I took my X-Acto knife and I cut. But when I did this, I made sure to go in a little bit less than where the line was, just to see how things were fitting, and then would cut a little bit more and then see how things were fitting. Just going back and forth because again, you can always cut more, but you can't put anything back once you've cut it. Once I got that to just the right place, I pulled out some cardboard, cut it into these little strips, figured out where I wanted them to go inside the skull so that the candle had like a little perch to sit on, marked that with a Sharpie, glued those pieces of cardboard together, and then hot glued them into the skull where that line was. I also made sure to hold this piece while it was drying so that it didn't tilt or move too much inside of the skull, and that way the candle would have a nice flat surface to sit on top of. From there, I made sure I knew where the back hanging hook on this mirror was, made sure everything was aligned properly, added hot glue around the edge of my skull, and placed it down on top of the mirror. Once that was down, I tested putting the light back in, and I did find that I had to kind of wiggle the skull a bit to put it back in. Originally, I thought I was going to take a candle and melt wax down down the sides of it. However, since I kind of have to wiggle that skull forward when I pop the candle in to turn it on and off, the wax would just crack and fall off. So I decided to leave it alone. And honestly, while I do think it would be super cool to have the wax dripping down, when it's night, you wouldn't really see it. So it's not that big of a loss. I think it's really effective even without the wax. Well, now that I'm all done with that, it's time for the reveal. Here it is. I'm so pleased with how this turned out. Like I said, the candle is pretty wedged in there, and I kind of have to push forward to get it back in, which is again why if you're going to do this and you want to have wax dripping down the skull, just cut this a little bit more. I might be brave and cut it later, but I didn't want to do that and risk breaking the project apart before I filmed it and showed it to all of you. It's so hard to film when it's dark, so I hope you can see the vision here in this footage. But I think it's really successful and turned out really creepy. Again, for this skull and this mirror to be Dollar Tree items, I don't think you would necessarily guess that. Maybe I'm just really biased and I'm wanting to see what I want to see, but I think it looks like higher quality than it is. Now they also have different mirrors, but the same sort of size at Dollar Tree. So I think you could get a bunch of them, do the same process, and have a bunch of them on a wall. Could look really cool for like a party or just for Halloween decor. If you were gonna do this project at home, how would you do it? Would you go for an all gold skull or all black? Would you do it more realistic like I did? Would you make a whole bunch of them for a gallery wall? Let me know in the comments because I'd love to hear. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!